if you're in a decent sized city, everybody has pretty good fellowship training.
They do.
And has been around for X amount of years and has done X amount of procedures with X amount of success rate. So if you're looking apples to apples, what's going to be the differentiator? It's going to fall back on those reviews and that overall customer experience, because that's going to be the difference ultimately.
That's absolutely accurate. I think that you've got like this Googleization of healthcare. That's kind of like the next disruption, because the fact is like when we're talking about reviews, most people visit 2 or 3. They look at 2 or 3 different reviews across 2 or 3 different websites.
Yeah.
And so if your profile isn't accurate, if the information isn't accurate, if there aren't current reviews, it all impacts our ability to walk through that digital front door or not. It's kind of like, which houses do you go to on Halloween? You got to pick the house that looks friendly and that they're giving out the good candy and all that. It's the same thing in healthcare. Hey there, welcome to the Dr. Marketing Tips Show. I am Jennifer.
And I'm Corey.
And today we're going to talk about kind of the digital disruption in healthcare, but specifically we're going to talk about how you and I have become kind of the power brokers. We are in control more than we've ever been, especially from a patient experience and an expectation standpoint.
Yeah, and if you've been listening or watching the show for any time, you know that we've been talking about this. This is not a brand new topic for us, but it does continue to sort of rise to the forefront of the discussion around the industry as a whole, in that consumers are more educated than they were, let's say, a couple years ago. On top of that, they have higher expectations. They have social platforms where they can share these experiences. And as those things continue to change and evolve, it changes the medical practice from the days of yesteryear to really being, really focused on the consumer and providing the experience almost as though you're in a customer service industry, because that's kind of what it is now.
It really is. And I can't remember how many conversations we used to have where doctors would say, this isn't a consumer-focused industry. Mm-hmm. And that was maybe 10 years ago. But now, in the last 10 years, if you think about it, even my mother uses the Uber app, uses Amazon. Instead of going to the store, she just orders it on Amazon. Every TV show you'd ever want that you could ever take the time to watch is available on demand.
Right.
And so that's kind of like this new Amazon effect, or whatever you want to call it. That is like the regular consumer expectation at this point.
Yeah, I would say part of that is due to COVID. I think that sort of shifted the expectations, because all of a sudden now everything is through video. Coupled that with rises in technology and smartphones, your Netflix, your Uber, your DoorDash, or whatever. So yeah, I think that definitely changes the overall expectation. And then we have a lot of conversations too with operations. I think now more so than ever before, where mid to large practices that we work with regularly, we also bring in HR and operations to sit down as we're coming up with marketing strategies and campaigns and whatnot, because we know that if we are not able to walk the walk and talk the talk, we're going to face the repercussions of that. Meaning, if the experience doesn't match what we say, for example, if we have a new campaign that rolls out that we're talking about same day, next day appointments, but then when you call, you can't actually get in, well, then the whole thing was kind of for naught. So it's because this change in the consumer has led to just the different expectations. And I think that's what we're talking about today.
Yeah, and it's
just
funny.
The change.
We were having that conversation earlier about you have to be able to walk the talk or talk the walk or whatever it is.
Those two.
We were talking about coming up with a commercial.
Yep.
For an independent group. And the whole idea was do we focus on access? Do we focus on independence? What should we focus on? We're like, well, we can focus on access, but only if it's before 4 p.m. and certainly not on a Saturday.
Right, because you're not open.
Yeah, because we're not open.
Yeah.
So you got to make sure that what you're putting out there is the right thing. But I think the data says it. Over patients now rely on digital reviews or digital resources 3 times more than they do word of mouth referrals at this point, because they're coming up behind you and they're checking everything. It's like Open Table or Yelp, or making sure that the product is something that you want. That is the age that we're living in, and healthcare is not separate from that age.
Yeah, and I think, in addition to obviously looking at, let's say, the Google reviews and just saying, oh, well, they told me to go to Dr. Smith. Is Dr. Smith, oh, he's only a 2.5 rating. I wonder if I could go to, Dr. Sharon in the same practice and have a better experience with her, or whatever the case may be. I think that's definitely part of it. And then also, it's just the presence online has become so much more important than it was before. So that's your reviews, that's your website. It's not just a marketing tool. It's kind of like the digital front door to your entire practice, because if people start to walk through that front door and they see something they don't like, they might just walk on by. Where in the past, that was never the case.
Well, in the past, you had to park. You had to walk to the front office.
Literally, right.
You had to take off half a day of work. Now you're clicking around on a few things. So I think it boils down to you have to own your own narrative. You need to optimize your online presence so that the minute somebody is looking for you, that you are showing up for them. Because the expectation is the Amazon, the Uber, the Netflix. It's healthcare on demand, and you've either got to get with the program or move aside for the other practice down the street.
Yeah, and another thing I think is the convenience aspect of it. It's non-negotiable, and that is a conversation that I continue to have almost daily, where some practices have no type of online scheduling. Some I'm actually working on a campaign right now for an ortho practice that is just launching self-scheduling. It goes live Friday, and patients are going to be able to book themselves on the schedules of the providers 24/7, 365. So that's a big change for them. That's a big deal. I think the research says that 60% of patients prefer online booking, and a lot of practices still struggle with that, either because you can't book directly on the schedule. So for example, I am also working with a behavioral health group, and they, once you submit the request for an appointment, have to call you back to do some additional legwork, and then only then will they figure out where you can actually fit on the schedule. But the problem is they're understaffed, so it takes them 3 to 4 days for them to call the person back, and by then they've either moved on, they've scheduled with BetterHelp or one of those other places, and so yeah, if it's not convenient, then you're right, people you lose them.
So I had a meeting with a CEO of a practice this morning, and they're going through a change in their EHR. And so they're supposed to go live in the next 30 days. And he's like, look, if you're not here to talk to me about the EHR integration, don't even talk to me about marketing right now, because, I got to focus 100% on this. And then he said, well, hold on a second. I just found out this morning that our direct scheduling tool is going to go down for 30 days. So, kind of back to what you were saying of, you got marketing, ops, and HR all together. Well, if the direct scheduling tool goes down, one, you've created this new friction for potential patients. So how the heck do you think you're going to get these patients in the door if they can't schedule, when we know that more than half of patients now prefer to schedule this way?
And by the way, that you have a set amount of patients you're trying to see for the year to make quotas and goals.
That's it. And on top of it, you're dealing with turnover, and you've already got a very high level of stress, and now operationally you're getting ready to switch out the EHR. So how are you going to now take 800 to 1,200 phone calls for appointment requests and bring them back into the mix? It's impossible.
Did he say, is he going to ramp up?
It's making you nervous too, isn't it?
Yeah, is he going to ramp up call center staff for that, or is there not a plan?
He literally found out this morning.
Interesting.
And I said, hey, we used to have the requests an appointment. Why don't we revisit those forms and let me dust them up and make sure that they're clean and ready to go, and maybe we can use conditional logic to help us in that scheduling to find a way to do it in the 30 days. But the point is the EHR is taking up so much bandwidth. They can't also have them onboard a new scheduling technology. Yeah. Which the consumer doesn't care.
No.
They don't care about this. They just want to make their appointment.
Yeah, they want that sort of concierge level service. And yeah, they don't care about the nuts and bolts behind that. For that same EHR rollout, something that I was working on the other day was just a super simple sign that they want to put up that basically says, essentially it says pardon our dust, you may be here a little bit longer while we figure this out, because essentially we're learning in real time. Which is a nice sentiment to have the sign up, but I think if you put that sign up, people are going to start saying
well, I've been here 12 minutes. Like you're reminding them.
Right. And ultimately, like you said, they don't really care. You know, like, thank you for letting me know that, but now I'm just annoyed, even though I haven't waited yet because I saw the sign, which means I'm going to have to wait.
Now I've
So
been
now I'm
waiting.
annoyed.
Now I feel like I'm waiting.
Yeah, so my patient experience automatically, I'm a little peeved before I even do anything.
So I think the next thing as it relates to kind of this digital disruption is, we kind of touched on it before, like the rise of consumerism. But the fact is like it used to be clinical expertise was why people chose you. Now people are choosing you because of your reviews and your level of customer service. It kind of goes back to like, if you want to be a great practice or a great business, it's not about the product that you produce. It's not about the doctors, guys. It's about the level of service. Starbucks didn't become a $100 billion company because they had great coffee. I'm drinking it right now. It's good for $8 or whatever. But the fact is, it's the experience, the fact that everyone knows your name, or they hold your hand, or you've got the app, or it's super convenient and you could pick it up on the fly. Like, it's the experience, and that same thing translates to healthcare.
Yeah, and it obviously is a little bit different depending on where you are. Like if you're in more of like a rural type area, this maybe not, it won't apply. But if you're in like a mid-market city or larger, for the most part, unless you're into like a very specific specialty, for the most part, everyone is qualified. Everyone is good, right? So if, again, going back to the ortho, since we've been talking about them, like if you're in a decent sized city, everybody has pretty good fellowship training.
They do.
And has been around for X amount of years and has done X amount of procedures with X amount of success rate. So if you're looking apples to apples, what's going to be the differentiator? It's going to fall back on those reviews and that overall customer experience, because that's going to be the difference ultimately.
That's absolutely accurate. I think that you've got like this Googleization of healthcare. That's kind of like the next disruption, because the fact is like when we're talking about reviews, most people visit 2 or 3. They look at 2 or 3 different reviews across 2 or 3 different websites.
Yeah.
And so if your profile isn't accurate, if the information isn't accurate, if there aren't current reviews, it all impacts our ability to walk through that digital front door or not. It's kind of like, which houses do you go to on Halloween? You got to pick the house that looks friendly and that they're giving out the good candy and all that. It's the same thing in healthcare.
Yeah, and it also, just going back to consumer trends, most people now do that with everything from where they're going to go to dinner to who's going to work on their car to the next phone they're going to buy. They're looking at all of these different places and kind of crowdsourcing trust, essentially, is what they're doing, and healthcare is no different.
Well, and I think everything is about trust building. Mm-hmm. And if we're talking about Google and the way that we're looking, like I kind of feel like the research that we're kind of referencing for this is even a little dated, because the fact is these are the things we're doing from a marketing perspective right now. But if we're talking about the Googleization and how important it is to be able to show up at the right time at the right place when people are looking for you, 12 months from now, they may be looking for your practice in a totally different way.
100%.
Because right now, we're still focused on SEO, organic content, and we can't take our eye off that ball. But there's like this other game going on over here, and I'm like starting to fall prey into it too. Like I'm using ChatGPT or Gemini or Perplexity or Anthropic or whatever it is as my search engine. So if that's the case, where's the value in SEO and where is the value in focusing on my website if people aren't even going to get there anymore?
Yeah, it's hard to click on a Google ad if you don't go to Google.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, so
that'll be a whole other series, but the fact is that's the trend we're starting to pay attention to.
Right, and a lot of the things that we always talk about in terms of SEO and just overall sort of making sure that your house is clean and in order from a website standpoint, those things still apply because that's how you're going to show up for these other search engines. But as an example, Perplexity is a fantastic tool. If you haven't used that, it's a great search engine. It's AI powered. And what it does is it will basically scrape the internet similar to Google, but then give you a summarized response. And it'll cite the sources. But unless you're looking for something specifically, you're not going to actually click on any of those sources. You just want to know that it pulled it from somewhere and it's not just making it up or hallucinating, as they call it with AI. So yeah, it's going to be very different, I think, in the next 12 months. So the term Googleization is not going to, I don't think it's going to apply in a couple of months from now.
I think you're absolutely right. And in fact, if I were to pull up my AI right now with my new voice search, let's see what it would say. Hey, I'm looking for a doctor who could help me with an ear infection.
I'm not a doctor, but typically for an ear infection, you might want to consult a primary care physician or an ENT specialist. They can diagnose and treat the infection properly. If you have any symptoms, it's best to reach out to a healthcare provider.
Well, is there an ENT doctor or a primary care near me?
That means it's thinking.
In Orlando, you can consult Dr. Indranil Debnath, an ENT specialist at 1414 Cool Avenue. For primary care, Dr. John McDonald at 60 Columbia Street is a good option. It's always best to call ahead and confirm availability.
Thanks, ChatGPT.
So, point taken, the world has just changed. If you want to talk about digital disruption, to me, that's your number one digital disruption as we go into this next year.
Yeah, and I think that voice assistants have been around for a little bit, but this is
a different level of voice assistant.
Yeah, it's the next evolution of them. And as things continue to evolve and AI gets more and more integrated into the things we do, I think 12, 24 months from now, it's going to be very different. But for right now, I think the same rules still kind of apply. The same idea that transparency builds this trust, that you have to have continuous engagement. Again, make sure that your website is in order. Like, all of those things still matter, and they're still going to matter, but I think the route that people get to you is going to change a little bit.
Absolutely, and no longer is marketing a nice to have. It's you die without good marketing, because you have to make sure that all these pieces are coming together and that somebody is taking care of the house. And that's where good marketing comes in. And you want people that can work with HR, ops, and marketing together, because that's really the playing field that we're on now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you want to wind up, just looking back. You want to be the Netflix and not the Blockbuster.
That's right. That's a really good way to put it. So with that, I'm Jennifer.
I'm Corey.
We'll see you next time on the Dr. Marketing Tips Show. Thanks a bunch.
Bye, guys.
If you want more like this, hit like and subscribe so you'll always be alerted to new episodes when they come out. And if you want information about us, visit us over at insightmg.com. That's insightmg.com. We'll see you on the next episode.